Hi QEP instructors, this is Cindy with video 3 of our QEP instructor training video series. At the end of the last video, I asked you to write down all of the types of writing that you do for a whole variety of purposes. Organizing, planning, brainstorming, consolidating, learning, recording, reflecting, exploring and developing new ideas, questioning and critiquing ideas. Then you read Chapter 7 of Bean, who calls this kind of writing informal and exploratory. This kind of writing is what our QEP refers to as writing to learn. Just to recap, remember, we know that more writing is better writing. That's the basis of our QEP. Specifically, our QEP says that you will add assignments to your QEP class so that students write at least 2,500 words over the semester. To get a feel for how much writing that is, a double-spaced Times New Roman 12-point font with 1-inch margins page is about 250 words. So we're talking about 10 pages. If they were all typed up, which half of them are 1,250 words will be. Those are the words that will be written as part of process writing assignments, which we'll talk about later. The other half, or 1,250 words, will be written as writing to learn assignments. So they won't be typed using 12-point Times New Roman font, double-spaced, 1-inch margins. Because remember, writing to learn assignments are informal and exploratory. So now, a little more theory. To increase student writing, we have to change our students' perceptions and our own about how good writing takes place. We have a popular idea about good writers and how they sit down and pop out a polished, finished product on the first try. By the way, that's what we're asking our students to do when we assign in-class essays, for example. Later in our training series, when we talk about process writing, we'll learn that one of our goals is to convince students to postpone the idea that their writing is finished. But with writing to learn, the idea is that the writing is never finished. It is a tool for thinking, and therefore it is shorter, spontaneous, it can be personal, it's of course exploratory, it's unedited, it's ungraded, and it's unrevised. Let's take a look at the resources the QEP provides for understanding writing to learn. You've already read Chapter 7 in Bean, but his 22 ideas, starting on page 131, are worth looking at again. You also have this Elements book. Read pages 80 through 82 for a brief discussion of writing to learn, and you may want to read that whole chapter. And you also have this book, Content Area Writing. The entire first half is about writing to learn, so flip through this book as well. It's well worth investing your time in learning how to add writing to learn activities to your class. I finally found the various writing to learn activities to be helpful. Just as a representative example, 97% of the students in one section found journal writing, a common writing to learn activity, to be helpful, with 72% finding it very helpful. Another common writing to learn activity is reading responses, and likewise 100% of the students found reading responses to be helpful, and 100% found essay questions to be helpful. With this in mind, here's what I'd like you to do for next time. After you review the resources I mentioned above, reconsider the 4 to 5 writing to learn activities you selected at the end of the last video. Now that you know more about writing to learn, do these still seem like the best choices for your class? Select 2 that you are particularly interested in and answer the following questions about each of the two activities. When will students perform these activities in your class? Try that again. When will students perform these activities in your class? Will they do it at the beginning, the middle, or the end of a class session? Will they do it outside of class? How will you assign these activities to your students? Will you post them as discussions on Blackboard or as assignments on Blackboard? Will you just extemporaneously explain them in class, or will you hand out written assignments? How will the assignments count? Will they be a participation grade? Will they be half of the grade in your class? Probably not that much. Will they be a third of the grade? Maybe that much. How will you assess your students' completion of these assignments? We said that they're ungraded, but you do have to count them in order to get students to do them. That's just a sad fact of life. So, how will you assess your students and whether or not they complete them? For example, will you read or skim everything that they write? Will you pick them up randomly and read them at intervals? Will you collect them all and skim through them 2 or 3 times per semester? Will you give credit because you walk around the class and you look to see who's completed it, and that's how you'll assess whether your students do it? How will you assess whether the Writing to Learn activity is working in your class? And finally, think about how these assignments add to and complement what you are already doing in the class. It may help to collate this information in a chart that could look like this. Bring this chart, or whatever you do, with you on the 29th. We will use it as part of our training. I think we'll have time for one more video before the 29th. In that video, we'll go over a Writing to Learn example.